always be wary of people who do not respect or respond when you say no. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I've been working with victims and perpetrators of abuse. And one of the things that, always stands out, I've worked in corrections for several years now. And one of the things, I used to work with men in corrections. And prior to that, I worked with women, in pretrial probation and as a contractor for Federal Bureau of Prisons. And one of the things that always stood out to me when working with people that are extremely manipulative is that they don't respect the word no. And so there's a number of different reactions that they can have to you telling them no, or, I'm not okay with that, or, they perceive it, one, they perceive it as rejection. Two, they can perceive no as let's negotiate. It's time to negotiate. And I usually see this dynamic with men and women. So when women tell a man no, then a man takes that as a green light to begin negotiating, versus when men say no, that's usually a lot more finite. Not always, but most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, it's usually much more finite. No one's ever pushing a man to say no unless he has a reputation for having a weak backbone. I'll just put it to you that way. And then some people take no as like, okay, well, like that's like an opportunity for me to get you to say yes. So a little bit more than negotiation. This is a little bit more aggressive. Like, I'm going to get you to say yes by any means necessary. Then you have people that become enraged when you say no. So it's like they become so emotionally overwhelmed with anger and rage. They're like foaming at the mouth, right? And so it's like they want to rip you apart limb from limb for saying no. And one of the things that, I used to always work with men, about in prison is like, learning to accept no, learning to emotionally regulate when someone tells you no, and, just, sitting with that. Because, sometimes I was very good about telling men no. I tell men no for everything. Like anything they ask me for prison, no. No, 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 no. They would hear it from me all day long. Dr. Jones, can I get a pencil? No. Dr. Jones, can you give me paper? No. Dr. Jones, can I go to bed? No, you cannot do any of that stuff, right? Because inmates in prison, they're a good way to learn boundaries, but they also test your boundaries. And inmates know that they're not supposed to be asking you for stuff, and you're never supposed to directly hand an inmate anything, right? It's always supposed to go through a guard first, or at least be handed to them in front of a guard. But certainly like pens and things like that, sharps and things, you're not supposed to do that. But surprisingly, a number of staff would do it anyway. And so inmates are going to inmate. And so they're going to try you to see, what can I do to get this person to say yes? And once you say yes to something, no matter how small it is, they know that they got you. And once they get that small yes, then that's like a foot in the door approach, and then they can get you to say yes to just about anything else. So they know, they size up people and go straight away, right? But the other thing too, that, just in working with clients, especially with dating culture now, and, with families, and I've worked with toxic families and abusive relationships and things like that. One of the things that I always tell people about is red flags when they tell someone no. Especially if you just start dating someone, and you say, hey, I'm not interested, or we're not aligned anymore. And this person, like, I don't want to see you anymore. Like, basically is what you're saying. And this person like blows up and just has a sort of a catastrophic meltdown. That kind of stuff doesn't make sense to me. And I always tell my people that I work with, I always say, you need to stay away from people like that, because that is a sign of a predator. You know, if you're just met someone, you've gone out on 1 or 2 or even 3 days, right? That you should have a low level of investment, of emotional investment with a person like that. And so therefore that person shouldn't have such a visceral reaction. They shouldn't feel guilty. They shouldn't feel ashamed. They shouldn't feel so enraged that they want to lash out. They shouldn't feel entitled to your undies or what's underneath your undies, right? And get so overcome with emotion that they feel like they want to blank and flash on you. That just doesn't make sense to me. So you kind of want to back on up out of there and tell that person, see you later, or not even anything at all if they can't handle a no in the slightest way. So I always tell people that's a red flag, and that's a sure sign that that person is a predator, or the very least has a violent temper that they can't control. And I've gotten to the point now in my life where, like, I don't like when people when I say no to somebody, I don't like it when people like try to come back and ask me, or they're persistent. And so I say no quite a bit even now. Like, you know, when someone tries to sell me something, you know, or marketing or something like that. Well, Dr. Jones, can you, you know, would you try our services? No, I'm good. Well, what about blah, blah, blah? After that, I mean, you know, after I said no the first time, you're kind of blocked, because I don't like being sort of pestered. And like, you know, no matter which way you finagle it, my answer is going to be no, right? And I'm not going to even entertain that, because I'm pretty solid on my first go round of saying no. Like, and so, and, you know, sometimes that comes up a lot when people may want to work with me. You know, that may come up if we're not a match. And I'm pretty good. I've been doing what I've been doing for a while now, so I can kind of tell who is and who isn't a match for me. And sometimes you get some people that are just, their behavior is a little bit too much, too concerning. And so it's like, I can't do a whole lot for you. Or, you know, people that are very resistant. People that are very resistant to treatment and or change. And sometimes you get that. It's like everybody else is a problem. I don't, you know, no. So those are certain instances, but also too, I think this comes up a lot, you know, in the dating circuit too, when you have people that take your no as like a let's start negotiating. You know, you tell me no, you don't want to come up to my place. Well, what if I come over to your place? What if we just stay downstairs and we have a nightcap? What about that? And it's always like something to get you to say yes. So when someone doesn't respect your no, and they're always pushing the limit to get you to say yes, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's marketing. I don't care if it's business. I don't care what it is. They don't respect your no the first time. That, you know, they're going to be a problem down the road. And I always say the very red flag that you ignore will be the one that comes back and bites you in the butt in the end. So be wary of people that just don't respect your no, that don't respect your boundaries, and people who have this over the top reaction. If they become enraged or unreasonably angry, or even you know, disrespectful when you tell them no, that's a sure sign that that person has some problems that are only going to get bigger the longer you stay in a relationship with them. And you know, I'm at the point in my life now where no one should ever feel like comfortable enough to be disrespectful. So I think, for me, I think, you know, I'm very like absolute in that way. At the first sign of disrespect, it's time to go. You know, and that applies across the board, in work, in business, romance, friendships, and things like that. So, you know, always be sure to keep that solid line, because I think one of the biggest things that people regret in relationships, or when they feel like they've made a mistake in relationships, or when they've ended up with someone that maybe isn't a good fit for them, is like, why did I betray myself? Why did I go back on what my gut was telling me? Why did I do that, right? And so stick with your gut and stick with your no. Hope that helps. Like, follow, and share if you found this helpful.